Hi, Maddie. How are you?
Hi, Simon. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the Inspiral podcast. It's a podcast that will look to inspire so many who are going through similar stories and relate to just hearing someone talking about it and realizing they're not alone. Without any further ado, I'm going to pass you the microphone to really start where you feel comfortable. There's a lot to cover. Over to you, Maddie.
Okay. So I would like to talk about my um, shame, the experience of shame preventing me from getting the help or reaching out for the help that was so important. And I didn't even realize that I had shame. So to tell you where it starts from is grew up in a dysfunctional family, a functioning alcoholic father who was often violent, and a narcissistic mother, which I've only just realized very recently. So growing up, it wasn't fun. Lots of violence, lots of alcohol. And I eventually managed to escape. That's all I wanted to do was escape. I escaped to the military. Now, my childhood had been so bad that at the age of 14, I was at the lowest I'd ever been. I'd been mm, sexually molested by a group of boys um, when I was 14, and just with everything around me and feeling so alone, I I decided one day that this was it. I do not want to live anymore. I didn't talk to anyone about it. I kept it completely to myself. I hid it really well, and it ended up I was sitting on my bedroom floor. My mum was out, my dad was out. It was fantastic, the perfect timing. And I looked around the house for some pills and found some. Sat there, uniform, bedroom floor, handful of tablets. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what they would do. Um, I didn't know if they'd kill me. Uh, the only thing that stopped me from going through with it was a little voice in my head that says, "What if it doesn't work?" I mean, I'm so glad that we didn't have the internet back then. Um, you know, I may look younger, but we did not have the internet back then. We did not have smartphones or any way of finding out exactly what these tablets were. And I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of living, of being found and rescued. That was my biggest fear because my situation would have got a hell of a lot worse. I would have been kept inside the house. I would have been kept. I can just imagine it still. So when I escaped at 18, oh boy, I was in freedom. I just wanted to go crazy. Um, I mean, I'd had the shame as a child of this sexual molestation, but also realizing that my family were different and what I was going through wasn't actually normal. And you don't find that out until you get out in the world. So I come to this place where I've joined the Air Force, and while you work hard, you party hard as well.
Mm.
And and the alcohol was incredible. I had so much fun. I mean, they were great people. They really were great people. But it was just such a fast-paced life. And there was always somebody available to go to the bar with or to go out to town with. And as part of my career, I lived in Cyprus for two
Maddie,
years near I.
if it's okay with you,
Sure.
I've just digested so much information that's
Okay.
new to me that it's still going through me trying to, um,
Okay.
certainly as a parent of two as well. Not that that makes any difference, but just a 14-year-old girl on the floor in your uniform. I think your words were, I was afraid of living."
Yeah,
Um, I mean, it completely breaks my heart. I'm going to take us back to that. It seems like when
sure.
when you were in the RAF, you found a tribe. You
Mm,
found perhaps part of a family that was missing for so long in those years. I can see this is emotional for you.
mhm,
So let's take our time. What were your memories under 10 years old when you say you had a narcissistical mother, uh,
mhm.
you had a violent, drunk father? Take me back to those days of what should be normal, whatever normal is, but the thought
Yeah.
of normal childhood that you would have missed, and maybe grieve to this day. I'm talking birthdays,
Mhm.
Christmases, weekends, friends over. Are you happy to go back and
Yeah, sure, sure. I know it's important. So, I mean, from under 10, friends didn't visit. At the end of the day, they were all scared of my dad. Um, because there was a lot of violence in the house, usually at night. But everybody knew about it. Nobody said anything. Nobody from outside tried to talk about it, especially not with a child. Um, at that time, the police, there was no criminal law against it. It was seen as a a domestic thing, which wasn't a crime. It was in the house. So, I mean, I can remember so much. There was violence all the time. I can remember being woken up one night. My dad would go out every night. Now, he would only have up to 2 or 3 pints, so he wouldn't come back stumbling drunk, but he couldn't not go out.
mm,
And it did increase his violence, although he was quite emotionally abusive during the day. The violence actually was fueled by the alcohol. Um, and what would happen? I can remember being woken up one night. My dad come home. I was actually asleep for a change. My brother was asleep in his bedroom, and we were both woken up by our dad, forced us to come downstairs and sit on the sofa. So we were both sat there wondering what the hell's going on. Mum was crying, um, and dad, he he started to emotionally abuse her, but then his fist started flying, and he proceeded to beat our mother in front of us. And we were so young, there was nothing we could do. So you just had to sit there. And then after that finished, he went into the bathroom or he went somewhere. And mum was screaming at us, "Why didn't you help me? Why
Maddie?
didn't you help me?" And it's like, I was must have been about 6 or 7. And that fed into my shame a lot as well. I always carried that guilt.
Maddie, you
And
were
that
7.
I know there's nothing I can do.
No.
I've explored all this with therapists, etc.
Mhm.
So it doesn't hurt as much as it used to, but I can see it standing out as an out of body experience. So I can look at it and I can see that young child, 2 young children, sat there watching their mum being absolutely battered in front of them and being
How do
unable
you
to do
feel
nothing.
when you're watching those 2 children from where you are now? How does it make you feel given the retrospective
Yeah,
wisdom that you've found with age and what should and shouldn't happen
yeah,
and what is wrong and what is
yeah.
wrong?
So, I mean, when I was first looking at it from an external point, I was angry as
Mm,
hell. One, how could you do that to my mum,
mm.
let alone anybody else, someone you love? And then how can you do that in front of two children? who were completely powerless, completely helpless. And I realized as I've aged that that is exactly what it was. It was all about control. It was all about power. And I can remember when I was a kid, one of my most frequent thoughts were, when I grow up, I'm going to get you back. I'm going to be the one in power, and I'm going to be the one that victimizes you, that just to have that, just to show him that I got power over him and he's the weak and vulnerable person. And that is part of what fueled me getting through. And it's
So you
like,
almost wanted to reclaim that moment of being a 7-year-old in another body with hindsight and
yeah, and
show
being
him
bigger.
what was
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah, being an adult, him being weak and vulnerable, and me being the one to exert the power, to make him feel powerless, to make him feel weak, to make him feel vulnerable and not be able to do anything about it. That's what I wanted. Never wanted to ever physically hit him. Never. That's not me. So despite all the anger I felt, never wanted to hit. So it was just I wanted to reclaim my power and control over myself from him.
I mean, to put this into some sort of perspective, 7-year-olds are thinking about going for their first day at junior school,
Yeah.
and not having this abuse and the needing of these thoughts and having to protect people at the age of 7. You are innocent.
Yeah.
What? I mean, it's completely taken me back.
Mm.
What was? You say did you ever have a father? Did you ever have normality? Did you ever have a life without this?
Not that I can remember, but we, my father and I, we shared the same sense of humor. And I'm more like him than I am my mother. And it's taken a long time to come to terms with that. But we used to have great laughs. That was the problem. You never knew when that switch was going to go, when that monster was going to appear. So I've recently realised that I'm slightly neurodivergent. So
Hmm.
I can be very much black and white about what is right and what is wrong. And that used to come up a lot when I was a child because I always used to challenge him. Um, and it's really weird to think back. I would tell him, you shouldn't be doing this. And then I'd get a slap for it or something, I don't know now. What am
Do
I, child?
you got abused as well? You got hit
Oh
as
yeah,
well?
all of us, all of
What was
us.
the level? I was thinking of, was there any apology? Was there any accountability? But what was, if you can, if you
Yeah,
feel comfortable enough, what was the level of violence that a 7-year-old is seeing and being exposed to and enduring herself?
it was horrific. So, I mean, my mum would, excuse my language, she would be having the shit kicked out of her frequently. Oh, she really would. I have two older sisters. They suffered badly. Um, but while I was growing up, they'd left home. So they were doing their own life. So they wasn't seeing exactly what was going on in the house, despite them knowing what they'd been through. But their way of dealing with things, all of my siblings, was keep your head down and just wait until you can get out of there. So you just keep quiet, walk around on eggshells, don't interrupt anyone. Um, Not me. I, I'm, I stand up, even if I know what the consequences are going to be. I mean, when I was able to, I was just always out of the house, whether it was taking the dog for a walk that was like 6 hours long and I'd come back when he'd gone to the pub, that type of thing. I mean, I left home at a young age and went sofa surfing. So I made myself homeless. because it was safer. And then one of the places that I stayed, it was with two male friends. They both great, great people as such. Turns out one of them wasn't, and he's now a convicted rapist. He attempted to rape me. Thankfully, he hadn't got far into that. You know, I was pinned down, I was fully clothed, and the other gentleman came in, interrupted, saw what happened, and he said to me, "Look, you need to go somewhere else. You're not safe here." He says, and I can't. It, the people that I grew up with were not people who talked to the police, even when it was the right thing to do. So he did what he could to protect me, but he said, I can't be here 24/7. And he says, I only had like 2, 3 weeks until I was joining the Air Force. And this will tell you how bad it was at home. I knew that if I stayed there, I would be raped. I knew that. There was a really good chance of it. I still begged and pleaded to stay there because it was so bad at home that I preferred the rape situation. I mean, the
Indeed.
last time I'd stayed in the home, my dad had his hands around my throat and we were looking into each other's eyes and I didn't care. I didn't care if he killed me. I genuinely didn't. He just floored my mum trying to get to me. She tried to protect me. He swung around into a door frame. She ended up with 2 black eyes. I ended up with his hands around my throat and I just really didn't care. As soon as like, do it then, go for it. I don't care. And I could see what was going on in his mind. I could see the cogs turning. I could see it wasn't really him there as such. It didn't look like him. And thankfully, my brother came in and managed to disrupt it. And then we had a full physical fight. My brother and me against my dad. And ended up, I had to go.
My reaction is hearing this for the first time. You've lived and relived these moments, and it's shocking. It's
I'm finding
shocking.
that out. I'm finding that out.
So I'm just coming to terms with
Mhm.
what you said, and that you would rather, can't dress this up, you would rather be raped in the other house than
Mhm.
go back.
Yeah.
Such was but the second house was already after running away from fear of the first house. So by that happening in the second place,
Mm.
talk me through how you must have felt. You've gone from what should be a safe space, your home, your family home, to somewhere else where that horrific incidents happened.
Well, I
Where
was
did you
quite lucky
think of turning? What was going through your mind?
when I first left. Um, I went to stay with a friend and his fiance, and that was a great place. It was so much fun. I was safe,
Yeah,
and we had such laughs. It was that breathing space I needed,
yeah, yeah.
and I felt safe. I knew I was safe. So it was great, but it ended up, unfortunately, my friend, he ended up in prison. Um, so I couldn't stay there anymore. His fiance couldn't pay the rent and stuff. So I ended up going home very briefly. I mean, it lasted a week, and that was when I ended up with the hands around my throat
Well, there
as
wasn't a
such.
change of behaviour when you returned. There wasn't a welcome back. There wasn't
No,
any accountability of it was straight back into normal. There was no. What I'm trying to
Yeah,
say is that the scenarios, the scenes, everything, it was going on with or without you. It was happening, and you
yeah,
had to go back into it.
yeah. I knew my mum was still being beaten because my brother would update me. Um, but I could see it. It's very because I would visit her sometimes when I knew he was out of the house. When I knew what time he would go to, I knew his routine. So I would go and visit her at like 10 o'clock at night, and I could see that she'd been beaten. All the telltale signs were there. And I think we all got used to it, to be fair, to the physical side of things. The worst was the emotional abuse. I mean, the once it was, we didn't have much money. And to this day, I can't drink a cup of tea or even smell tea because it makes me feel sick. Because the once he decided to use the emotional uh, torture on me as such. I'd asked to record a program back in the VHS days, and he said, "Yeah, that's fine, as long as you put 50 pence in the meter." I says, "Okay." I only had the change for 50 pence. I didn't have a 50 pence piece. So my mum says, "I've got one. I can change that for you." And he went, "No, you have to have the 50 pence piece." Um, Meanwhile, there was a cup of tea going cold in front of me. Because my mum, that was her thing. Every chance she got, "I'll make you a cup of tea." And I'd said, "No, I don't want one." This cup of tea had gone cold and it had a thick skin on the top. And as punishment for talking back to him, um, and just whatever he made up in his mind, he forced me to drink it, um, cold. And I knew that would have to go down my throat one way or another. It would be less painful just to drink it. But to this day, can't drink any kind of tea, whether it's got milk in it or not.
What would
And
have been the alternative, Maddie, if you hadn't have drunk it?
that would have been a beating, and probably I would have had it forced down my throat.
Oh, was there any repercussions for this at all in the longevity of your father's life? Did it ever come to fruition that he was actually um, reprimanded or?
Not really. Not officially. One thing that happened was while I was at school, I went in with a black eye. And my deputy head teacher, he called me down. We spoke about it. I told him exactly what had been happening. He was horrified. So he says, "Right, I'm going to contact your parents." And I'm like, "Don't, you're going to make this so much worse." But he was so furious about it that he called both parents into the school. My dad refused to go because he's a coward.
Mm.
I mean, I do understand him a lot better now. But my mum sat there. She talked to my deputy head. I was sat next to her. And she actually says, "Oh, it was her own fault. She was playing up." It's so, but what did happen was when I was older, I, s- I stopped communicating with him. I told him what I thought of him. I, I told him I didn't want to see or hear from him again and that I would never be in touch. 5 years after that, he was diagnosed terminally ill. We didn't know how long he had left. And that sent me into a spiral because all of those plans I'd had to take my revenge, to take my power back from him, suddenly I knew that there was a timer on it. And I didn't know how long that timer was. That's when I first ended up in therapy. That's when I realized how ill I was. And I spiraled. I spiraled badly. There
How old were you at
was,
that point?
yeah, sure.
How old were you at that point?
Oh, at that point, I was around 32, 33. Yeah, so it was quite late coming. That's when I realised, after talking to the therapist for the first session, I would say, I knew I was experiencing something quite severe, and I had been for a long time. But I just hadn't realised whether it was, again, shame, the shame that this had happened to me, because I couldn't look at it through any eyes other than a child. He was still that big monster in my head, etc.
Now, this was
And so
being,
I was always that child.
this wasn't you. This was being done to you.
Yeah,
This was being, but it's so hard for to let you know that, because all your learnings are done in the younger years,
yeah.
to a great extent, up to the age of 7, and then through the school years and everything else. And all all I can see that you were being taught, so it's not you that was happening to you, was that there was no safe space physically, there was no safe
Mhm,
space emotionally, because even when you had a chance to speak your voice in school with the headmaster there, that opportunity was taken away from you as well.
mhm,
So the people that you are meant to be looking up to as caring for you were both preventing you from being safe. There must be, I can only imagine, there must be huge issues with trust. I don't know, we'll come on to that
mhm.
in a second,
Sure.
but there wasn't a physical or an emotional safe space at all. And while you thought the clock is running, I've only got so much time to reclaim my power
Mhm.
and to let someone know and speak these words before the end. Did you get that opportunity?
I did. I wrote him a letter, um, and I told him I would like, he knew he was dying, so he was quite open about that as well. This is what I was hearing from my siblings, etc. And so I sent him a letter and I says, look, I wanted him to die in peace. I didn't want him holding on, just, you know, out of fear of what happens next. He comes from an Irish family, um, and his mum was staunch Catholic, and so he had a lot of stuff put into him when he was a kid. So this letter said, "I'd like to speak to you. We don't have to speak to each other about what's happened, because it's been and gone. I know what happened to me.
Yeah.
I know what you did to me." I says, "And you know it too." I says, "So I don't want to go through some pointless exercise, and I'm beyond the stage of, you know, wanting to go through it all again, go over it all again."
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So I said, I'll come and visit you. I lived a long way away. I said, but you need to contact me to let me know that's okay. And he did. He called and he says, please, are you serious about not going, talking about everything, and going through all that? He basically was saying, it's not going to be a blame game, is it? And I said, no. It's just to say goodbye to you. And so I went there, and it was quite a surprise because when I walked in, he he was so weak, so shriveled, so vulnerable. Um, and he's just there lying on the sofa. And I felt sick because I thought back to those revenge things that got me through, that, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that,
Mm,
and
mm.
all this stuff. And I felt sick at the thought of it because he looked so pathetic. And that's not me. I can't,
Maddie,
I
did
just even think about
in that moment where, in your words, he did look pathetic and you
it.
were
Mm,
effectively standing over him, you know,
mm.
in a way victorious because you weren't broken. You hadn't taken your own life. You were there. You've
Yeah.
made it. You've done it despite everything that was thrown at you.
Mm.
Do you think perhaps that was your moment that you could have, but you didn't, which actually made you
Yeah.
reclaim your power and control more than had you done anything?
Yeah. I think added to that, it was that I could have, and I didn't,
Mm.
but I didn't want to. That was my childhood. And I looked at him and I'm like, you're not that monster I had in my head. He'd always been a monster in my head, despite the, the good times that we had, because we had a lot of laughs. Even going on through like my 20s, I'd say it was, mid 20s or so that I actually went, no, you're not good for me. You're toxic. I don't want you in my life. Um, so yeah, I think that him saying sorry to me as well, and he was crying and saying sorry to me just over and over, and it was genuine. So seeing that he was genuinely remorseful, that was like a huge weight off my shoulders because it was confirmation that I wasn't making this up because everybody else was like, no, it wasn't that bad. No, it wasn't this. He knows. He's
Mm.
always known.
Mm.
And I'm not going mad. I'm not losing, I'm not misremembering and stuff like that. So even though I was sure I wasn't misremembering, but
Yeah,
when
I know, but
everybody else around you tells
when
you,
the world tells you otherwise.
yeah. So that for me, I mean, the first therapist I went to, so when he was diagnosed terminally ill, he said to me that it's very rare for you to get an apology from the abuser, but I got that. And my mum never did. And my mum was
Rosie,
very jealous of that.
how did that apology look? What was said? Because
It was,
that must
he was,
be the purest of, the moments that make us hide, but that is when you stood proud and tall and you were told it wasn't you. Talk us through the
yeah,
apology.
it was literally, he could barely move. Um, and he was just, he was just streaming with tears and just say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you. I'm so sorry. So I could tell it was genuine. He never says, I'm sorry. He never used to say, I love you. Word love never came into it. So we weren't a huggy family or stuff like that. We weren't a family that told each other that we loved each other, even the siblings. It was, yeah, it was just survival from the start. So to see him, that to me was an admission
Mm.
that it was all on him. I didn't say sorry. I've got nothing to be sorry for.
Yeah.
So, and then I just said to him, I said, "Look, I forgive you for all of that. It's gone." And
You
that
said, I
forgiveness,
forgive you.
yeah, that wasn't for him. That forgiveness was for me. That was my boom line under it. It's done. He's gonna die. So, you know, why not forgive him? Why not take that weight off his mind despite all he'd done to me? I knew that going forward, I would regret it if I didn't.
Mm.
So that forgiveness was about me, wasn't about him.
You go, Maddie. God, that got me. That really, really touched me because you were so not under his control anymore that you could
Mm,
decide whether you forgave or not, and you're glad that you did.
yeah.
Maddie, I mean, we don't know each other. I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, wow. And for what that's worth, I am. That really, really touched me that you decided to do that for Kim. Um, during and after abuse, I presume that some people may think it was just physical. You know, I did the physical things. I was hitting, I was punching. They, you know, maybe a narcissist has their own reason. They, you know, they're in their own
Mm,
story. They're either the hero or the victim, but they're never the villain. Hence the no
mm,
accountability and no
mm,
apology. What I presume he didn't see was that the emotional toil from when you said about 23, 24, no, that's enough.
mm,
But for the next 8 years, my maths may be wrong, but for about the next 8 years up until seeing your father lying there, you still
mhm.
had these visions and nightmares of him being a monster. So although he was deteriorating in health, the presence of him was still that raging monster that you
Yeah,
experienced. That didn't diminish, did it? And that would have
no.
gone on and on for as long as he was alive, I presume.
I'm slightly beyond it.
Yeah.
So it was the therapy that helped me the most. That was the recognition that it's not just you that this happens to. It's not your fault. Uh, and that you should have no shame and no blame on yourself for what happened. And I mean, I am so big on therapy because they don't give you the answers. They don't give you the solutions. They question you and you find your own solutions through those very craftily, cleverly crafted, questions, those open-ended questions. And I must admit, it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. And I'd done parachute jumps by that point. I
This was
won't be doing them
confronting
again.
it. This was looking at it again, going through it again,
Yeah,
accepting some guilt. And like you say, that
yeah,
shame, you know, you had that
the
wasn't yours to
shame.
own, but you had to work through
Yeah,
it all.
yeah. And the judgment. My biggest fear when it comes to that day, I requested the help and this, that, and the other, and it took 8 weeks to come for my first appointment. And I was sat in the doctor's surgery waiting. Uh, I almost ran away
Mm.
because I was so terrified. And then there was the therapist come out and my military background came in, said my name, I just followed him. But then I'm thinking, all these people know he's a therapist. I mean, they didn't. So they all know that I'm mad, that I'm broken, that I'm, worthless. All the things I'd been told, um, that I wasn't lovable, that nobody would ever love me. But that was by my mum. Um, that
No,
people would all know this. Yeah,
that was your ma.
yeah, she told me that. And that was when I was 2015. I was told that actually. So that would have been after that first set of therapy. So yeah, it's not been a
You're
pretty life.
speechless. I'm genuinely speechless. I don't know what, you know, if you could, is your mum still with us?
Yeah, she's in end of life care at the moment. So
Do you have the same thoughts about going to see her? Are you still in contact? Are there questions you would like to answer to, which is, why did you say that to me?
there's no point. She's a narcissist. She'll deny it. I am still in touch with her. Went to visit her, 3 weeks ago? Just before I went on holiday in case she died while I was away, because I was not going to cut my holiday short. I mean, I'm not a cancer surgeon or anything like that. There's nothing I could do, so I weren't going to cut my holiday short. But as I said earlier, it's only recently that I've come to realize she's a narcissist. I always saw her as the Olympic champion for Britain for guilt tripping. She is the queen of the guilt trip. Now I worked that out very early 20s, and so I said to her that don't work on me. So I ignored any guilt trips. I'd be like, I am doing what I want to do. This is my life. So because she'd be like, "Oh, I'm so worried. I'm so worried." And I'm like, "Well, you carry on worrying. I'm not. I'm going to go and do what I want to do." And I would go and do it. And it's like, don't try and interfere in my life. Don't control me. Um,
You've done
and
quite
I have,
enough, thank you.
yeah, I had to warn her at one point 'cause she kept trying to get me to talk to my dad. And I said to her, if you don't stop doing this, I will do exactly the same to you as I've done to dad. This is, I won't be in your life. You won't hear from me. And she understood it in the end. It got through to, because I just stopped talking to her for a while and she realized, but she doesn't acknowledge any of the stuff that I went through. Like I say, she's jealous that I had an apology from my dad. And I told her, I says, well, did you ever hold him to account? And she went, no. I says, well, that's why you didn't get your apology. I says, I did. I did something about it. I says, and that's why he said sorry to me. Well, with my mum, now that the light bulb, as I say, I'm still in therapy. I'm back in, I'm on my third therapist now. It's been well over 10 years, since I was in therapy, and then something 3 years ago triggered it in the workplace. And yeah, it's this recent therapy. I've realized she's a narcissist. And there was actually a slip of the tongue by my therapist. I said something to her about what my mum had done. Yeah, well, that's typical for a narcissist. And she just stopped, because it's not so much she should have said that, so much I should have come to myself,
Mm, mm.
but she couldn't unsay it. And then I started reading up on it, because it's so easy to call somebody a narcissist. So I read up on it and I'm like, oh my God, yeah. And then I've spoken to another sibling about it, shared articles in this, and she and her husband have both said, oh my God, that's mum. That is mum. It explains so much.
Suddenly
And
it's not on you again, is it? Suddenly it's not on you. It's like the
yeah,
third person. And was the incident, you don't have to go into it at all, was the incident at work that triggered the therapy again, was it in
mhm,
some way related to the loud noises, abuse? What was, well, and again, don't go into detail if you don't want to, but what was
yeah, no,
the
it's
thing
fine.
that, was it something that reminded you of
It it
everything?
wasn't necessarily reminded me of my children now. In hindsight, there was a bit there. It was about not being listened to. So I was overwhelmed with work. Now, part of my job means I have to put work on other people. And they was just so overwhelmed. They didn't have enough time to do what they were being asked to do. And they were suffering. And I hate seeing other people suffer,
Mm.
especially if I could do something about it. So I was struggling, so I was kicking up a fuss. I was reporting it back to my manager, and I was just getting no, it's not, it's not like that. And it built up over 18 months, and I was warning them that I was deteriorating physically, mentally, and I warned them that I was getting ill and pointed out the reasons why. Thankfully, I documented it. Other people were kicking up a fuss, but in the end, they have responsibilities. They need to keep their jobs.
where I was going, where I was really going to was that this effect of the abuse can come out in other shapes and forms, is
Mm,
with you. And that's the thing, that whether it was work, whether it was other environment, everything about abuse carries on and on and
mm,
on, doesn't it?
yeah,
The perpetrator
mhm,
may have passed or
yeah,
apologized, but with you, how do you try to escape your home, your family home first.
mhm,
You then escaped a second horrible, where some vicious sexual abuse happened as well. You tried to escape that. How do you escape? How do you escape all of without? How do you get free? How is that through your therapy? How do you escape these long-term effects of abuse? That's what I'm trying to say.
A lot of it, therapy. In
Hmm.
the first instance about my dad, I did discuss things, but I was so ashamed about the sexual side of things. I didn't talk to my first therapist about that. That I've only recently discussed with my therapist.
What have you
It's,
learned?
well, it's just like the other abuse, really, just different people. It's had the same impact on my trust, on my self-esteem. Um, I, the first therapist, he told me to do something. And to this day, it still blows me away, the impact of it. He gave me some homework. He says, right, I want you, your self-esteem is in the gutter. I want you to do some positive affirmations, but you need to look in the mirror and you need to look into your eyes, not all over the place or just above the eyebrows, all those common tricks. And he says, now, what you need to do is you need to start off with, I am. He says, not, I'm not, because that's negative. He says, I want 3 I am statements that are positive qualities that you have or what you feel proud of. So I think mine were like, I am kind, I am good, and I am caring. I couldn't do it. It took me, I would stop, I'd be in tears. I couldn't look myself in the eyes. I couldn't say it out loud. I couldn't even say it once. And that's when I realized how low I was. I knew I wouldn't commit suicide because I've already been there, done that
Mm.
story. I never wanted to even think about doing that again. I have thought about it, but only in the general terms of, oh, wouldn't it be easier if I wasn't alive? And then it's like, no, that's not right. It might be easier, but it wouldn't be as much fun type thing. I know I've got through it once and I did that as a child. I can do it again, certainly as an adult. So yeah, I don't know. Remind me of where we were because my brain's just
You were looking into a mirror
other.
and you were
Yeah,
doing your affirmations. Now, if you could
yeah,
say those now, Maddie, would you be able to? Would you be able to say those 3 affirmations? Go on then.
yes.
Go on.
I am good, I am kind, and I'm caring. Absolutely. Piss man.
Absolutely. Yes, Maddie. Yes,
Yeah.
Maddie.
It took me about 3 months to be able to do it like that, straight in the mirror. And I ran around the house after that when I did it that first time.
Mm.
And it took doing it every day and practicing every day. And you can't do it until you believe it.
Maddie, there might be a lot of people watching this who have been through journeys that run parallel, that cross over,
Mhm.
existing or in the past, but they really don't feel loved. And
Yeah.
there's not a lot worse than your self-esteem through the floor and you can't save yourself and you can't say those affirmations to yourself. Where someone doesn't feel loved because they may have been betrayed or cheated on or uh, hurt in some shape or form, like some of the horrible, hideous experiences that you've had. And they feel that shame and the guilt that stops them effectively from even liking themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where they feel they've got no return. How do people in those situations just start to get the embers burning again of how to like yourself?
Hmm. Well, the first thing I always tell myself when so it's not going right is the only constant about constant is things change. So I know it's not going to be like that forever. So if you're feeling unloved or you got low self-esteem. If there's anything that's putting you into a negative mood, you're not going to stay there. There is light at the end of the tunnel. That tunnel might be a long tunnel, and it might take a lot of effort to get there, but you're damn worth it. I love my life. I really, really love my life. And I'm so glad I didn't take my life. And I'm so glad that even when I didn't believe in me, I fought for me. And sometimes that's in spite of what people have said. I'm the type of person you can say, you can't do that. I go, watch me. Just watch me do it. And so it's almost like that psychological, you dare me, I'll do it. As long as it's not completely stupid.
See, in all of the negatives, I'm not dismissing any of them.
Mm-hmm.
What positives might have come out in terms of your character, strength, resilience, hope, the way you can inspire? I mean, this podcast is called Inspiral. For people who have been in Spiral, who can inspire all. You are the epitome of that. What
Thank
other
you.
strengths have you learned? That you maybe wouldn't have had before?
The strengths that I've had is one, I've learnt so many tools through those tough times to survive. Some of them not quite so great for me. I mean, this is where the shame come in. When I got my freedom into the military, drank loads, became very promiscuous. And that's a deep root of the shame as well, was it I found out it's such a common thing for somebody to do, male or female. You become promiscuous because you're like, yay, there's nobody
But
stopping
also,
me
was it
doing.
connection? Was it that, and you wanted connection? You
It
wanted to
was.
feel loved. I mean, those feelings of oxytocin,
Hmm.
serotonin.
Yeah,
You must have been craving them. It must be like
yeah,
someone in a sweet shop when you say, "I can have this." I
yeah,
didn't even know this existed.
yeah. But then you feel like crap the next day. So for that short moment of
Sugar rush.
intimate, yeah, that intimate connection, fueled by alcohol as well. Um, the next morning, you felt like crap. I was trying to explain this to somebody the other day. It's I've tarred them with my worthlessness, with my nothingness. It's, so if there were people I really liked and respected, I wouldn't go near them in that sense of the word. They would be a boundary because I never wanted to taint them. I didn't want to pass on my sickness type thing. I never wanted to mess with their life because I was a self-saboteur. I would do something and it's going good and it's like, no, gotta trash that. And so a lot of the people that I slept with, I never knew them. They were tourists while I was in Cyprus because I was like 20 minutes from Ayia Napa. Great hunting ground if you were in my mind frame.
Mm, mm.
So lots of anonymous sex, didn't give a monkeys about it. Like you say, that sugar rush. But then you get the sugar crash the next day when you realise they only wanted to have sex with me. Even if they wanted to have a relationship or something like that, even if it had been with someone like that, I'd have been no. If they want to be with me, then they're just as worthless.
You've got the
They're just
added
as
effect then of the alcohol
mm,
kicking in as well,
exactly.
which
Yeah.
takes its toll. How would you sum up shame?
Shame there's the healthy version of shame, which helps us to, correct wrongs and realize when you hurt somebody and this, that, and the other. But shame has been my biggest barrier to being well, to getting well, because I was ashamed to admit a lot to myself. Like I say, with the promiscuity, that's not something you shout about, especially when you don't realize that it's a reaction. It's a survival mechanism.
Mm.
And it's like, so everybody has a story as well that they don't tell you about. And as both my
Gosh.
parents, my mum's narcissism comes from her treatment as a child. Her father used to throw knives at her. He was evil. That man was not a nice person. And I can remember he's a big chunk of us grandchildren were there. It was my mom, some of her sisters, etc. Were at the house for some reason. And we were sat on the stairs in the house because we knew something bad was going on and the adults were keeping us out of the front room. Next thing you know is an ambulance turns up, goes in, and he's going out on a stretcher. And I must have been about 4. And we all sat there clapping because we was glad he wasn't in the house anymore. And then he died 2 weeks later, something like that. And we weren't sad.
I mean,
I
it's been
remember
around
being,
you, isn't it?
yeah. So, I mean, the violence shown towards my mother as a child is on a similar level. And then with my father at his funeral, I was talking to my uncle, my favorite uncle, his youngest brother. Unfortunately, he's passed now as well. And he was telling me about him, some stories and things like that. And I started to see him through his brother's eyes and some of the things that he did. And they're things that I would have done, to be fair with you, cheeky little shenanigans and things like that. And then at his funeral, there was over 200 people that travelled from all across the country for his funeral.
Did you
And that was
resent him
so,
being effectively popular to those 200 people when you were the secret that you were filled of shame to keep?
I wouldn't say I was resentful. I was shocked. I was shocked at that many people because again, that opened up another side of him. I wasn't looking at him as a father then. I was looking at him as a man. And remember, I'd forgiven him for
Yeah.
my sake. So the pain a lot of the pain had gone. It was still there. The memories never go. And, some of them are as vivid as they were on that day, like with his hands around my throat. I can still see that quite clearly. I can see his eyes. I can see his face. Only when I choose to visit it. And so seeing that many people turn up for his funeral, I'm like, there's more to this man than I knew. And so getting to hear their stories, and especially about his childhood, he had quite a traumatic childhood as well. I mean, his little sister, she was only, 2? She died in front of him when he was looking after her as a 10-year-old. And this is back in Dublin, very poor background.
Yeah.
There was a pot of boiling water over a fire, an open fire, and his little sister pulled it all over her. And he tried to rescue her. He was 10. And so he always blamed himself for that. So I was finding out these little snippets and getting a more complete picture of him
That's
and
awful.
and a better understanding of where his issues come from. Didn't excuse them, but it was just for me,
Helped you work it through.
yeah, I know,
And by
to
working it
understand.
through and that there were other circumstances, took the emphasis away from you, I presume, and what you could have.
Yeah.
Um, we've got to wrap this up shortly, Maddie, but there are so many things that I want to find out. And I think people in similar situations of being trapped by shame,
Hmm.
you said the shame is what, like a superpower that prevents you, that prevents you from reaching out, talking out, making your life better? What
It's
is
like,
it? Why do people?
it, it's the thing that shame is fear. It generates fear. And it's the fear of vulnerability, of trusting others enough to be to be you with, to be authentic, all the bad stuff. I mean, we all put masks on.
It's like a presumption in your case that if I do share it, there's a presumption that someone won't.
Yeah,
Like, and is it essentially a worry of judgment then, in a way, or
it's a worry of judgment. Yeah, it's a worry of being vulnerable again, because you're opening yourself up to be rejected. It's opening yourself up to this is what you think, and it's not true. It shows your weakness. If you open up, if you're your authentic self, you're you're opening yourself up to more abuse because people can see you as broken and they don't realize that by being vulnerable, you're actually being strong
yes, yes, yes.
and you're being honest because it takes a lot to be honest when you have a background that you're not quite proud of, that you've got some shame. And I mean, mine had a lot of shame,
Shame
but
again, but that's having a
yeah,
background that you're not proud of. I mean, you
mm,
couldn't have helped your background. So
no,
why are
hmm
whoever's going through this, lumbered with something that they didn't ask for? And my other point is, if shame is the fear of the worry of judgment and the fear of being vulnerable, which you
hmm
succinctly said, and you're talking about it now, and all
hmm
I see is an incredibly strong person, resilient, someone I wouldn't want to mess with. Because the tools you've got in your toolkit, I imagine now after dealing with that, could deal with anything. Let's hope. So
yes,
if your worry is the fear of vulnerability, the worry of judgment, and you've done it and it's okay,
hmm
but that's the thing that's been holding you back.
yeah,
w- Reality is showing you that, in a sense, shame is a bully that's stopping you
mm,
from getting help. Because by
yeah,
talking and parking the shame and getting help, you're exposing the bully, just like you exposed your father, just like you've exposed the other. And so exposing by getting through the shame is a real strength.
mhm, yeah. And the thing is that it is proper freedom. It is proper ownership of your life, of your journey. Yeah, so this person did that to me and that person did that to me. The important thing about that is they did it to you.
Yes.
It's on them. You have nothing to be ashamed of.
The shame on them. Take it off if you can. I know
Exactly.
it's not easy.
Yeah, no, it's not. And it's hard to sometimes realize that it's there.
It's
It's done to
invisible.
you.
It sort of gets in you.
Yeah,
It's within you, and you don't even know it creeps
yeah,
up on you through years of all that stuff.
yeah, that's it. And then when you finally realize it and when you finally face it, you're not facing shame, you're facing fear. Now, surely you're worth it. It's
Mm.
scary, but I can tell you from my position, there are things that I faced that terrified me. That very first trip into a therapist office, the very first time, which has only been recent, as I said earlier, facing the effects of the sexual assault, especially as one of those group of boys at the time who carried out that assault. One of them I was friends with and remained friends with. And that was, I think that was a fear of calling that person out, or it's really, it's really mind bending and strange.
Probably only so
But
much fear you could possibly take at any point, Maddie. I mean,
yeah, and and he was a good friend after that. Whether he felt remorse or not, it's not something we talked about. It's not something you would ever talk about at that age. You're certainly not authentic at that point. But it was like, and I lost touch with him eventually, again in my late 20s. But it's like the shame of that. And it's like not just the shame of being assaulted, but the shame of staying friends and becoming close friends with one of those people who assaulted you. It's, and so that was double shame. And it was double shame that I shouldn't be owning.
No,
The shame
no,
of,
most definitely, and I agree 100%. And there's only so much you can do when your resources are absolutely depleted. You're not on the floor, you're through the floor. It's a long way just to get back up to normal. What for anyone who's watching that feels shameful about something that's happened to them? You've been strong enough to say that it was the counsellor that was feeling the fear and working through that. Um, Talking, speaking out, shaking off,
yeah,
confronting the bully, really, because bullies don't want you to expose them, and so by
yeah,
talking, you're exposing the bully, and they'll soon run off.
yeah. Or even one of the other things is talking to somebody you trust. Um, you might still think they're going to be judgmental, but I'll tell you now, you'd be surprised. If you have someone who's a close friend, who's caring, they'll probably be shocked, but in a way that you haven't told them about this before, that you've had to experience this. A little bit like yourself with the
In
first
a caring way, yeah.
evening. Yeah, in a caring way. And then it ends up they want to help you.
Mm.
Uh, and they'll say that they'll be there for you to speak to. So it's a great way just to offload. And then that starts you down that path of maybe I'm not as bad as I
Oh, that
think.
little glint of hope,
That
that little
little, yeah,
glint of
that
realization.
light at the end of the tunnel that, might be far away, might actually be closer than you think. And so just the very first time you tell somebody else, even if it's only a little bit, gives you that confidence to open up a little bit more, maybe with another person that you trust, a little bit more. And then if what you need is professional help, that will give you the confidence to go. And I promise anybody watching this, you will not be judged in therapy. And if you don't feel comfortable with the therapist that you are assigned, you go with somebody else. You ask for another therapist. That's not a personal joke. You have to get on and trust the person that you open up to.
Maddie, all of your experience is leading you to a point where you're inspiring so many now, with these, just small steps. Get a glint of hope and just fan those flames and just small step, small step, small step. It's not you, small step. The shame isn't yours. It's not my shame. And we've got to sum up now.
Okay.
I mean, what from your journey, is there anything else you'd like to say? And what would you love anyone to take away from your journey, your strength, your resilience, your courage, um, your conversation today?
The biggest point is you're not alone. There are so many other people that are going through, they may not be similar situations. It may not be violence. It might not be emotional, torture or things like that. That doesn't negate your feelings. The feelings of fear, of shame, of not being loved, that it doesn't matter what the situation is, those feelings are just as strong. So if you're one of those people, and I used to be one of those people that would feel really bad and you go, yeah, well, others have it worse than me. Yeah, they do. Others don't. Others, would look at your situation and go, you got it worse, you got it worse than me. That does not invalidate your feelings. Your feelings are important. That's what gives you the strength to go through. So, yeah, so somebody else might be going through something worse. I still feel like crap. I'm still down there in the dumps. You know, I'm too scared to go out. My anxiety is so high. I still have moments like that where it's just can't go outside today. I just can't do it. That's why I'm still in therapy. And I'm sure that in the future at some point I'll probably trigger a little bit on something. It might not go to the point where I need a therapist, but it's not a one-stop shop. You can go decades in between and not need therapy again. So don't look at it as you being broken and then there's a one-stop fix shop, but also don't downplay your emotions and the impact they are having on you. And don't be ashamed, even if you're 100% sure that you own that shame, but you don't, but you don't. So start talking and reach out. Easy to say, I know. Just reach out to somebody you trust, somebody who's
And get
caring,
that
somebody who'll
professional
listen.
advice.
Yeah, that professional. Yeah, absolutely.
Maddie, thank you.
You're
Got a bit
very
of a lump in
welcome.
my throat. Genuinely,
Oh,
thank you. Uh, there's a lot in there that I'm going to take away, and what I'll remember are your strength, resilience, courage, and the fact that you took that glimmer of hope and you started to rebuild. The shame's not yours, and you're having being an inspiration on many. So I'm sure for many of the people listening, yes, it's a journey, it's an onward journey, but for today, thank you.
you're very, very welcome. Thanks for listening. Appreciate
That
it.
is a pleasure. Thank you, Maddie.
Oh, good.